Series, we are in Season 3 of the Premier League. Just got done with our very first match. Hearthstone moving on 2-0 over Major to the winner's match of Group A. Now we have to find out who's going to advance from the other match, and of course, who will go down to meet Major in the elimination match. Rotterdam joining us here on the desk. Good to see you, man. Good to see your beautiful face here. Chat about the matches coming up. But Polt versus Petraeus is the one coming up here after that first one, and the big story here is Polt, right?
Yeah.
Not just Group A. Can he do it again? He talked boldly saying, I'm going to win all 3 seasons. Didn't happen in Season 2. But you could still win 2 out of 3, and I don't think anyone's going to complain about that one if you can make it happen.
No, and obviously it would be the only one being able to win 2 out of 3. I'm sure Hydra's looking at this season as well, being like, I think I can do it, you know? Like, Hydra probably saw Season 1 as a little bit of a fluke. He felt like he should have won it. Came so close, of course, back then. But in the end, Polt was able to clinch out Season 1. That was a great final, probably one of the best finals we've had all year. But in Season 2, you know, I didn't even feel it was that close. You know, when you look at it, when we looked at the semifinals, Polt didn't really put up the same fight as he put up in Season 1. So it's a little bit of a question. What Polt are we going to see today?
Yeah, I mean, for Polt here, Chris, if he doesn't cruise through Group A, and this isn't to discount the other players, but if he can't cruise through it, that's a bad sign for him over the whole season.
It's a really bad sign, especially since he's always been one of those players that turn it up later. You know, he gets to the finals and then people kind of say, like, he isn't the same Polt, he always falters, and then he kind of just turns it up when we get to the round of 16, round of 8. So in the group stage, we've seen, you know, last season he lost to TLO, he was struggling a little bit. If he falters a little bit more, we could all of a sudden see him not even make it. And if that did happen, that would be obviously a huge, huge upset.
Yeah, of course, on the other side now for Petraeus, a bit of a very different angle on the whole WCS Premier League, right? Petraeus now going back out to New Zealand, and he's still here, though. He's still traveling around playing professional StarCraft II. And for him, more than anything, aside from going all the way, you know, winning the trophies or, you know, even going to BlizzCon, things like that, just being able to say, you know, I beat Polt, I moved on, and then just moving on each step is going to be just another thing to put down on his, you know, StarCraft II resume for him to be proud of as he goes back home.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe it's even a little bit of a weight off his shoulders. Now he doesn't have the insane pressure anymore of really having to perform. You know, like, I took a year off. This is the year where it has to happen. I want to do well at every single tournament. Because he was known as a practice monster. You know, like all the Europeans said, you can't play 3 games of ladder without running into Petraeus. You know, he's always there. There's almost no one who plays as much as him. And he definitely had a couple of acceptable runs here and there, especially last season, you know, making it into the round of 16. Was one map win away from making it into the top 8 at WCS Season 2. You know, that would have been phenomenal if he would have been able to defeat Jaedong. But overall, maybe it's not the results that he would have hoped for. But now, you know, a lot less pressure. You know, I'm just going to make the best of it. He still has the mechanics. He still has the knowledge. And maybe it can all come together with a little bit less pressure. Maybe we're even going to see a better Petraeus than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, we discussed it briefly earlier, Huck. What's your take on it so far? What can we expect from Petraeus coming in?
I would just like to highlight what Roddy said. He doesn't have that pressure. He's going to school. He could be that Vortex that is a better player while going to school than when he's off. And to be honest, I could definitely see that being him. I always say that the happier you are, the better you're going to play regardless. And he was that ladder monster. He did have all that pressure. I talked to him personally about it a few times. You know, encouraged him to take a year off, try to go pro and really make it. It didn't happen. I don't think he met those results. But now, going to school, it's all just fun and games. As you said, he gets to travel the world. He gets to make a little bit of money. Why not? He could all of a sudden, you know, turn it up and do really well.
It's funny that you know, a little bit of money, but obviously we talked about this earlier. Prize pool has grown quite a bit.
Yeah, like just to attest what Jeff said at the start of the show, you know, just making it into this tournament, that's more money than I ever got for winning my Warcraft tournaments, you know? Like, this is not fair, man.
Yeah, well, I mean,
born in the wrong day and age, Chris.
Well, these guys obviously also put in the work. I mean, for those who are in every season, right, that starts to add up. But then you have to think, sure, on a personal level, the prize pool, no matter at which level you finish the tournament, is nice. You know, the WCS points is nice. But again, it all leads up to BlizzCon. And for Polt here, it's about, can I go higher in those seeds so that once we go into the global finals, I can have a bit of an easier matchup statistically? Because right now, he's more or less guaranteed to go in, but not necessarily at the most comfortable spot.
Yeah, and like that. Who's the top player right now? I think it's Hero.
Yeah.
And you do not want to play Hero going into BlizzCon. He's an absolute beast.
Yeah, he's been tearing it up.
It always goes two ways, though. It's kind of hard to predict because sometimes there is suddenly, a Korean who really became very good in the middle of the year, does very well in GSL Season 3, and then just barely makes it into the top 15, and then you can be pretty high-seeded, but you don't want to go up against that guy who is hot as fire, just winning GSL Season 3 or something. So I think in that regard, I don't think Polt is thinking about it that much, but Polt is always thinking about another championship and all the prize money.
Yeah, of course, a bit of a greedy guy. And then here's Petraeus. No greed on his part right now, just simply wanting to play as much as he can here at the WCS Premier League. And like you guys mentioned, it's a big highlight for him back in his kind of comfort zone, you could say, in some ways, how well he's going to play when he's had a little bit more relaxation. Coming in, his first matchup, of course, a tough one in the Titan, that is Polt. But as Hug's been mentioning, Polt here, not always known to perform well in the very early stages of any tournament.
Yeah, I mean, he mentioned as well that he lost against TLO in the round of 32. They played again in the quarterfinals. And Polt in the quarterfinals when it came to WCS Season 2. That was a different Polt, man. He was so good. He was just all over the place. And we know how solid TLO has been over the last 5-6 months. But that series, it wasn't very close. Polt was just too good. But maybe this is again going to be one of those round of 32s where we don't see the same Polt. I don't even think that Polt practices the same as he does for, going into a round of 16 and quarterfinals weekend. As for a round of 32, he probably just believes that on his experience, he's going to be able to make it through.
Right on, and we are taking a look at the maps and vetoes. Of course, kicking off with Coda again. Thanks to Petraeus' pick there. Coda, quite a staple now in all of our tournament settings. Now for Polt, do you think it's any worried at all on who he might have to face next, or is that just no regard because he knows he needs to move out as first? He's expected to move out as first in Group A.
I think he's super confident no matter what. I mean, he's so experienced. He's looking at this group saying, everybody expects me to win, I expect to win. He's probably put in a decent amount of time, not as much, of course, for the round of 16 or round of 8, but all in all, when you've done this so many times, it's Polt. It's another day at work for him.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent way to put it for him. It is a lot of repetition now for Polt. I mean, he's been around for a long time. He's been at various stages, whether it's the actual stage itself, how big is it, how big is the audience, and also the tournament itself. Am I in the finals? Am I in the round of 32? He should be used to all of that by now. On the contrary, Petraeus, in some ways, I like how you mentioned it, Rotterdam, how he's less pressure in a lot of it. It's a very different scenario for these two. I mean, you couldn't have two players that come from more opposite ends.
And I mean, some people may not still be very familiar with Petraeus. You may have heard the name once or twice, but then you probably ask yourself, how good can someone from New Zealand really be? But he's actually a very legit player. There was a time that all the Europeans spoke very highly of Petraeus. Be like, you don't want to face Petraeus in the round of 32 because it's like if you lose, people are going to be like, haha, you lost to Petraeus. But they don't actually know how good he really is. And if you win, then it's like a really often very tough, well-fought victory, and you have to really struggle for it. And then everyone's like, yeah, you were supposed to win it anyway. So he's good, man.
Yeah, it's a bit of a hidden card here for Group A. Well, ladies and gentlemen, again, Polt versus Petraeus. Polt needs to cruise through if he can prove that once again he's aiming for another championship title here in the WCS Premier League.
One man locked in, one man locked out of the global finals as we go into Season 3 of the World Championship Series. But in control, Petraeus still turned up.
Yes, but turned up for what, Nathanius? I mean, he is back in school. It's the underdog story. We talk a lot about this in StarCraft, guys. There's some pretty big ups and downs, and I was doing what I could to to fight for the non-hardcore fan in the background. I was like, guys, we can't do this again. We're like, what if Petraeus beats Polt? Like,
We can't talk about it. We can't talk about it like it's going to happen. It would still be awesome.
It would be awesome, though.
Yeah.
It would. I would be very excited.
Well, it's time to find out how much time off can help our New Zealand My Insanity player in the Northwest. He is Petraeus, who has been playing for quite some time in Europe, actually, but definitely going to a bit of a less competitive field to qualify again for this season. He's up against the Red Terran player from CM Storm, of course, WCS champion from Season 1, Polt, who basically just shows up and crushes face. But a little less face in the round of 32, Jeff.
He does. And it's, to be honest, it's a little bit of an embodiment of kind of like these Korean monsters that you face in these tournaments. A lot of the times when it's, it's double elimination, they've got a round to go, they don't necessarily know who you are. Polt probably not super familiar with Petraeus for a lot of the reasons the guys covered on the desk. He's not going to shift it into the highest gear. He's not going to pour it on. He has not studied you. He does not have a pocket strategy, if you will. So this is when Polt is most corruptible, most beatable. Like,
Yeah.
Petraeus is the guy who's got nothing to lose. If he loses, guys, he goes back to Australian and New Zealand beaches where there are beautiful women and men and dogs and dingoes and kangaroo. Like, just, it's happiness. It's freaking heaven over there.
It's a beautiful place from what
Now,
I've
if
heard.
Polt loses, the world gets a little bit darker on that day. It's like, is there no hope? Is there nothing we can count on?
Yeah. If there's one thing Polt has been exceptionally good at in the last few years, it is making very deep runs and
Yes.
winning World Championship Series titles. You know, whether it be mostly for the seasons, of course, wasn't able to get the big cheese last year, as we discussed a little bit earlier in the day. You know, Classic kind of smacked him, but for this matchup, we have Polt, who's been, as you said, a little bit more vulnerable, and Petraeus, who's, I mean, to be honest, he's from what I've talked to him as well, he is playing a little bit
Yes.
less than he was before. When I was living in Europe earlier
He's down
this
to 8
year,
hours a day as opposed to the 12.
yeah, he was playing like non-stop, because everyone would actually complain to me. They'd be like, well, if I want to practice versus Zerg, you use Q Europe ladder, you almost always get Petraeus.
Yeah.
He just doesn't stop actually playing StarCraft.
He does not. And it's that kind of dedication and work ethic that, you know, we talk about the fact that he never won a tournament. The results weren't really big, but guys, look at it this way. The man lived abroad, both Europe and America. He's from New Zealand, traveled the world, met people, competed, won some money, and if StarCraft was the vehicle for that, I would say he could look back at this and hopefully have no regrets. Would he have liked to have won a tournament? Sure. But look at this. I mean, the guy's in school.
Yeah, all things said and done,
He's
for
still
someone
competing.
Yeah, for someone that's still going, to be attending university at a pretty reasonable time in his life.
Yes.
Like, he's had a pretty awesome year living in California, living in Switzerland. He's certainly got to see his fair share of the competitive scene, and he's still at it. $4,500 is nothing to scoff at just for making it this
No.
far. And if he makes it further, we'll be blown away, and his bank account will as well.
With that $4,500, he could buy a Warlord Titan for himself as well.
Yes.
You know that? That's what he could do with his life.
So-
a little bit of the classic duel here, though. You'll notice the Reaper has a couple of kills. The Hellions did add to those kills, and they're just right now trying to fight back the creep, make sure that those creep tumors don't bleed down below the natural ramp. And if they can delay that longer, it's a bit of a game of attrition at this point in time. It's just nice, and Polt's doing that pretty good.
Yeah.
He did deny scouting, though. Oh, but the Overlord in the south comes up.
Yeah,
And
Coda.
the second you see that tech lab, Nate, what do you think? Ravens? Probably not.
No, I doubt it is the highly coveted Raven Caduceus reactor opening. That's
Do you remember one-base battle cruisers for the 1 week that happened?
yeah. Well, I tried to do that Fun Day Monday as well. And,
No, it's not.
it was
It's
tough.
not just that though. It was also Thor's, and they'd bring half their SCVs and repair it.
I think I missed.
You might have missed that.
I might not have watched that season of GSL. I
It
might have missed
was-
that grand final.
A dark time.
So, very standard Hellion Banshee opening out of Polt. Nothing really crazy. Petraeus has a good amount of lings on the map. Catching these Hellions would be nice, but, it's a fool's game trying to get Hellions in the early game. They are just so difficult to deal with when you don't have that massive lings. But you'd rather have drones. You want to build up your economy in the early game so that you can, catapult forward when your tech finishes. You get your Mutalisks out. And the Spire is on the way. He's going to go straight for Mutas. A great way to deal with Banshees. The question, I guess, is can Polt force some sort of damage? Because he does get a late third command center and very late engineering base. Polt, he's like always so confident with the units he has. He doesn't focus on the macro stuff as much. He doesn't worry too much about third command centers or upgrades.
Yep.
Whereas other players like Innovation would be super greedy.
Yeah, and his money will skyrocket a little bit up there too. He's definitely of the more kind of micro-oriented players, if you will. Getting good intel here. The links that were lost earlier, it's worth mentioning, especially in 2-base Muta. Like, that's actually quite bad. That's map control. It makes it hard to take the third. Hellions can move in here. They see the 4 queens. There's the cancel.
Yeah,
And
cancel on the third is really nice. Even if these Hellions don't kill too much, getting on this ramp is really sweet. They can kill a lot of Zerglings, but also drone kills are going to be really important. This buys time, especially if the Spire finishes during this. The Mutas are forced to stay at home. He's not going to get too much done with these, but he has all the information that he needs. Killed a reasonable couple of links, but this third base being delayed even more. This is a pretty big deal because his third command center's done.
But the other kind of resource that doesn't get mentioned quite as much in that situation, when you only have 2 bases, you only have the 2 bases worth of larvae. So when you lose lings, it's not like 7 Mutalisks transform the game and it's like, well, I don't need support for these guys because they're just ballers. No, they need support for sure. And they're not going to have that. And if they do have that support, it's going to be really tough on them because of how many were lost earlier and having to remake them.
Yeah, Banshee's going to be continuing to scour out the map, waiting for those Mutalisks. It's basically like, it's the doorman. You don't You know the mutas are out. Your Banshee's going to continue to do whatever it can. So now Polt knows, like, okay, I don't have anything out on the map anymore. Now's the time to be a little bit more defensive when it comes to dealing with this. I want to get my third base up, but Petraeus actually blocked both potential third bases with Overlords, denying with creep. Very nice. These mutas are going to come in and basically just camp the most annoying spot possible. So a pretty solid start, all things said and done. The later third for Petraeus hurts a bit, but he's in his own way delayed the third of Polt as well.
Which is an okay, I mean, definitely you'll do that, and you have to, otherwise you're falling so far behind. But he's got to look to build this. An intercepting strike force of Marines goes over there. They were actually just looking to get the Overlord, but they're going to be so totally fine with killing a Mutalist there as well.
I actually think losing one Muta was actually okay for Petraeus. I was kind of worried he would lose like
More.
2 or 3.
Yeah.
That's,
Well, if you're not paying attention, they'll jump in.
exactly.
They're like, all right, boss, we're going in deep. And they're like, no, boys,
the
not
Mutalisks
now.
are like, well, my AI tells me I should just dive on you right now. And then
It's an attack game.
Marines are like, yes, come over.
Not bad from Petraeus, though. Ling's kind of breaking down the rocks left side. And when I say not bad, what I mean is he did just lose that one Mutalist. He's getting some light harassment. He needs to earn time. He needs to saturate this third, even disrupting this natural here as well. Because if you look at that tech tree, he just finished Baneling's speed. He's got 1-1 on the way. These are the upgrades that can make him stand toe-to-toe with the army of Polt, but before then, not so much.
Yeah, this is another moment where Polt's going to move in, try to deny some of those creep tumors, but these mutas, they're still annoying, but they haven't done that critical damage. Polt's attack gets pushed back. Worker-wise, things are very close, so we don't have that big booming Zerg economy that we often talk about, and the mules are also going to keep Polt just a little bit ahead in terms of overall income.
Like, look, Petraeus is doing okay, but honestly, at this time, he should be putting down a fourth and really pushing towards that. He just now is taking the gas at his third, and if you look, he does have a little bit of a store of gas, but I think that's less by design and more by error, if anything. Like, he should have more mutas or just like a huge swell of Baneling, something to spend that money on. So he's falling apart a little bit at kind of the multitask stage. And without a fourth right now, and now a secure third for the Terran, I'm growing concerned, Nathanius.
Yeah, that minefield is spread out very nicely as well. These mutas are really all that Petraeus has to work with because his 1-1 took so long to finish. His Zerglings and Banelings you can't fight against Marines with an upgrade advantage like that, especially this early in the game. The muta count gets even further, then he loses almost all of them.
Yeah, 2 are going to make it back home to tell the tale of their like 13 SCV kill.
They're going to come back
trip.
and be like, stop building Mutalisks. There's a lot of Marines with guns out
I've
there.
seen what's going on over there, guys. What's the plan? But there are more Mutalisks being made. Again, as you said, not critical damage, but also not a critical mass. You can see 2 more being made on the production tab. That's to get to a number of like 10 or 9. And honestly, that's still just at the light harass stage.
The problem is, if you didn't have to replace those 9 or so Mutalisks, you've got a couple dozen Banelings right there. And then when the Terran tries to push you, those Banelings are what flanks or comes around the Zerglings. That's what actually allows you to kill those Marines. It's nice to have a lot of mutas, but you're never going to close a game unless you force some really weird base trait and have like 40 Mutalisks.
Okay. Oh, those are speed overlords. I was looking at the minimap and I was like, wow, is he going for some kind of counterattack? You know, Petraeus still going with +2 range attack on the muta. Well, their only attack is range, but +2 air attack upgrade, excuse me. So he's looking to actually get that big swell of Mutalists. Now taking the fourth in the top right-hand side. This is going to be felt up by Polt, but to be honest, the other story that's kind of developing here too, Nathanius, this is the most like passive Polt I've seen in a while. Usually he's way out there attacking by now. He's definitely, he's tried a couple of times, but nothing's super committed.
As much as Petraeus has bled out with those Mutalisks, he has done a reasonable job of keeping Polt at bay for quite some time. This is the first real aggressive move we've seen since he took down those creep tumors a few minutes ago.
And it's not going to be great.
No, actually a really great cleanup. You know, loses the Queen, but you kill this medevac and all these Marines. You can't be disappointed with this result.
It does win positioning, though, so here comes Polt, but he is going to fight on creep, at least for the beginning of this fight. You can see him digging in with the minefield, spreading it out. It's still mostly Marines. There's nothing like roaches. Certainly not Ultros, of course. We're nowhere near that stage yet, although Infestation Pit does go down now. Nicely timed with the 2-2 upgrade. But Petraeus is going to look here to get some contact. Bad Widowmine, a bit of a betrayer there. Another one betraying them, and the forces thinned out.
Those mine shots were not ideal in control. You know, Petraeus would like to wait just a little bit longer, though. His 2-2 is so close to finishing up, whereas Polt has only just started his 3-3. So he has an opportunity to fight on even upgrades, which as a Zerg, you love. Yeah, and he's going to push him just a few more.
Again, get the soft armor, but a lot of Marines dying there. The Widowmine's shots have been used up. Here comes the big side from the left. Yeah, they're going to go in. They're going to fight a little bit off creep, but they're doing a great job. Petraeus winning the fight.
Really solid flank from Petraeus, actually, to help clean up this army. If he can get these Mutalisks, that'd be cash money for him. Or, excuse me, the medevacs.
Yeah, he's got to get the meta. I mean, that doesn't have to. Oh, it's a little bit of a trap.
Nice.
Widowmine's there. That is a good shot.
The first mine shot missed. The second one got the...
we don't talk about the second one. The first one's the money one. Thor left on a little bit of an island here, and again, the medevacs need to pick it up and get him out of there. Petraeus needs to be careful about overextending that Widowmine shot. Also a good one, gets about 4 or 5 banelings there.
Always dangerous to push off creep and control that. Thor hammering it in on those mutas too.
It's like a childhood game of hot lava. You do not step out on that hot lava.
Do not step off the creep. Even though it may look like purple lava, it is actually the safe place for the Zerg player. Not mine shot, actually. These mines strewn about being very annoying.
Gotta clean them up. Gotta clean them up. But yes, the other thing worth mentioning here too, Petraeus has a lot of queens out there. He's been doing a fairly good job of spreading creep. But it's starting to slow down a little bit. And not to read too far into this, but if we're going to talk about a guy who's gone back to school and isn't playing as much, one of the first things to kind of erode in a StarCraft game is going to be your mechanics. And for a Zerg, that's often displayed in the spreading of creep.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Terran versus Zerg is all about. If you're coming in as the underdog, you can't afford to have any level of weakness against your opponent, especially when you could say it is the most important part of Terran versus Zerg.
I agree. Well, it's up there for sure. I mean, maybe some people disagree, but it's definitely in the top 3.
I'd say for Terran, Marine splitting is another one as well.
Absolutely.
And maybe dodging Widow Mines, but...
Yeah. So now we do have that 4th base, but I gotta say, for Petraeus, he's held on. He's got the 4 bases up and going, even going for a 5th at this point in time. He's gonna try to bust in here, but there is a bunker behind this, so it's just Lings behind that, and they're gonna be held off quite staunchly. Nice little target fire of the Baneling. But we do have an Ultralisk Cavern, and Petraeus has made his way into the later mid-game stages, where his army can start to get pretty scary.
Yeah, and this is a crucial moment for him because while he is going for the Ultras, we have the 3-3 only just now starting. He also needs chitinous plating for those Ultralisks to be useful. So Petraeus is, as good as this is, he's not looking to fight for a few more minutes. He's putting a lot of investments, high interest yields, waiting for them to pay off.
They're percolating quite nicely.
And then he cashes out those bonds for a big Ultralisk army and crushes his face. But, Polt isn't going to wait for those investments to mature in control.
He knows he's got to get in while the getting's good. And with 2 Thors, by the way, we just saw the Mutalisk try to pick off a Widowmine. That becomes a dangerous endeavor. The 2 volleys from Thors, that'll thin out your Muta count pretty quick, as we're seeing here. And I believe Petraeus just got to be like, you know what? If you want that 5th base, you got it. He's going to try to fight. Actually, it looks like Polt is fighting across 2 fronts here. And he's got to be careful about that too, though, because if he loses a big engagement prior to Ultras coming out, that can be really rough on his ability, because Ultras are snowball units. They can really start to do it.
Oh, man, especially on creep. This is where it gets really tough. The Banelings actually get some really nice hits on the front load of this army, but does Petraeus have enough reinforcements? The next wave is here. He cleared out a lot of that bio. Immediately, 9 more Marines are queued up. Another Thor, more Medevacs, more Widow Mines. But Polt's actually going to be pushed back for now. He doesn't want to press the issue just yet.
He's respecting it. He knows that with those nice connections from those Banelings there, if he pushes too far and overextends, he can actually lose this game. This is, I think we did a great job underestimating Petraeus across the board as a talent. We're like, this guy's completely dead. But here he is, having a great battle, fighting fairly well. He needs to keep pushing that creep forward. You can see these scans from Polt. He's looking to win the game of attrition. He had a big drop on the right side, but that 2's going to be snuffed out here.
This army gets better with time for Petraeus. Polt, he's got his +3 attack. That armor upgrade's closing in. Great cleanup of that right side, as you mentioned. But this is an army that, as time goes by, starts to tip further and further in Petraeus' favor. You get the +3/3 on your Ultralisks. The Marines don't actually deal much damage to them anymore. And then you're basically relying on the Thors, but that opens up the door for those Mutalisks again. And of course, this Greater Spire is also another phenomenal option, as Polt isn't even remotely close to building a lot of Vikings.
No, he would not see that coming. Of course, affording it is a little bit of another thing altogether.
It's an expensive purchase.
If Petraeus can make a meaningful number of Broodlords, we're talking like 5 or 6, it'd be incredible. We're going to have a big fight here, though.
Gets
Huge
a lot of the Marines with those first few Banelings.
The Widow Mines are bunched up, but they're not getting targeted just down in. There it is. Polt's going to turn the tide with those reinforcements just slightly off creep. Not being able to punish those Widow Mines and not really actually triggering the Widow Mines is kind of a big deal. You need to send out like Lings or something, but to fight them full force like that, well, here's the effect. Polt pushing forward, and Ultras, they're scary, they're great, they're big, but by themselves, they're cuddly teddy bears. They need friends.
Petraeus could have had a little bit more with that army, but he made that other investment into the Broodlords, and now there's 3 of them on the way. They're great, sure, but this is where it gets really tricky. He needs to max out on this army, and it could handle, a couple waves of this, but then it comes down to that control from Polt, or from Polt abusing the positioning. Broodlords, as powerful as they are, as long range as they are, they're quite slow.
The nice thing about Broodlords, to the added effect here, is that they're a nice counter to Widow Mines. Like, we see Polt still trickling out Widow Mines. It's kind of a mix between Thor and Widow Mine. And they've been doing a great job, actually.
Exposed Thor out here. He's going to go for the wraparound on this army, forcing a lot of pickups. Actually, the Thor gets cleaned up. That's not so bad. It's going to force this drop to go towards the main. At the same time, Polt loads up a drop on the right side, so he's looking to go for a counterattack on that 4th base. Petraeus really, all things said and done, though, he desperately needs a 5th base because Polt can afford to throw away this army. Look at this bank he's building up.
He's not going to have a 4th base in a second. Nathanius, he has no more Mutalists. He had a couple Corruptors, but they transformed into Broodlords, so he has no anti-air at this point in time, and Polt is going back into 2012, the green, good old times of Terran, where they were like, wait a second. If Zerg can't deal with medevacs, I just kind of flutter around, avoid the big fight forever, and kill all your bases.
Yeah, and he zoned him out perfectly. All these Widow Mines strewn between those bases can also force out a lot of shots on this army as it passes by. The Corruptors are out, but there's more medevacs now hiding in the top left side. Keeping this 4th base alive is crucial, but not going to be possible.
Not possible. Not with Polt out on the field, Mr. Captain America there. And the drops continue. This base, not important in terms of resources, but boy, does it need the tech. That's an expensive structure there, the Greater Spire. It will die. As long as Polt targets it.
Yep, the Queen gets killed before it throws any transfuses. He should be able to kill this. The Corruptors are here, so the Medevacs actually won't be able to get away. There we go. Greater Spire is down. That does mean these Corruptors, as nice as they are at killing stuff in the air, they have no further utility, so that's a doubt will be seen. I guess he doesn't have a 2nd Spire, so no mutas anyway.
I mean, he needs the anti-air, so that the utility, I agree, it's gone, but he needs the anti-air. It's more just that while that was happening, he's losing his only other healthy mining base again. He was trying to retake it. Polt is fully, he's got to feel confident in this game right now. We keep looking at these fights, and it's like, at first glance, the Terran's losing units, but he's replacing them. His supply hovering around 190 constantly, maybe maxing out, but never really dipping, and that's because he's doing such a good job of managing his economy and just continuously producing, and he still actually has a giant bank, BT dubs.
Yeah.
3,000 minerals.
He's starting to crank out a good amount of Vikings, too. At this point, with the mineral bank he's floating and the number of bases left on this map, he could just throw away half his SCVs and then just add another 30 army supply on just Vikings.
We're getting there. He might actually just do that. Yeah. Look around the map, by the way, too. There's little Widow Mines actually just everywhere. And this is, I mean, even down towards Polt's side of the bit, Polt is just all over the place playing to the long game. We're going to have a big fight here. Ultra searching for it, but again, they're off creep.
These Vikings actually took a pretty bad fight against these Corruptors. The Broodlords
he can
are still
afford
standing.
It, though. He's like, that's fine.
Yeah,
once these Ultras die, it's 2 Broodlords, bro.
This army is actually not strong enough. Even if it killed all of this, it wouldn't be powerful enough to actually finish the game.
And the Broodlords cannot run away, so this is going to be it. The Ultras are melting. Petraeus with no money, dipping down to 113 supply. He just has the Corruptors, but even them are coming up in short supply. Infestors walk out. GG is called out. A valiant effort from our student from New Zealand. Certainly a nice, dazzling display of casual talent there.
I mean, he actually had some pretty blow-for-blow play there. We talk about what really happened in that first map. And
look at that.
Polt, very stoic.
That's sweat on his brow.
Oh, my. We do have air conditioning here, so it's not...
It is comfortable.
He is feeling it.
He's feeling it.
He's feeling the pressure.
And ironically, he's sponsored by a company that makes fans for computers. So
that is...
I don't want to criticize the sponsor too much here, but I mean, if your boy's sweating, maybe you think about that jacket a little bit more high-tech.
I don't know if I'd put an ATX case fan on my forehead in control. But,
well, that's you thinking inside the box, Nathanius. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, it was certainly not that easy for him, especially if we talk, if we think about just how quickly the first series of the day went, and now we're going on to Bridgehead, which is kind of like one of those maps where you're like anything could actually happen because those rocks in the back. It's pretty weird. And then we have to ask ourselves the question, is Petraeus the guy to do those builds? Because to me, he's always seemed like a pretty straight-up guy. If you haven't seen this map, it's worth talking about. Pretty heavily vetoed. You're natural. There's no ramp to it. It's just there. But there's 2 giant rocks that open your natural basically as a massive backdoor.
There's the backdoor aspect. There's a lot of kind of narrowed spaces. It's called Bridgehead because it has a lot of bridges on it, which can be okay, but for the most part, it's just a little bit of a funky map. A lot of players like to eliminate because they don't like those variables. They like to play
it's a very interesting map in that regard, that you can use so many different areas. Both third bases, both options for third bases are very exposed, and you kind of have to pick your poison on if you want to do something crazy. Because I've seen some players even break down those rocks and take that base as their third on occasion.
There's some cheese coming out too, where the natural ramp into your base has 2 small destructible rocks that actually have very low health. I think it's just 500. So there's been Baneling attacks where they actually, you think of those as, well, they wouldn't Baneling the rocks to get into my base, but then they actually do.
It's scary.
Catch people off guard.
It's scary. There's a reason why a lot of people will veto this map, and it's not as much that I don't think that this map is too bad for long games, but the early game shenanigans can run pretty deep on this map. We are loaded into Bridgehead, of course. On the left side of the map, we do have our New Zealand student playing for My Insanity. He is Petraeus. currently down 0-1 in this best of 3. As he faces off against the Season 1 champion of WCS, CM Storm's Polt.
Well, I mean, Polt is one of the most, you know, it's funny, he's absolutely one of the most storied, accomplished, and successful StarCraft II players. You go back to Wings of Liberty, this guy was winning the biggest tournaments back there as well, across all the continents. He's been traveling, he's been a student, he's been living abroad, like, he's done it all. It's actually a really cool story, and it's funny because, you know, he gets all, there's like joke memes about him, like, oh, Captain America and all this stuff. He's like very obviously Korean, but he lives abroad. But he's just kind of a, you know, in his interviews, he's not afraid to throw a little bit of shade, a little bit of bold talk. He'll say, yeah, I'm gonna win this season, I'm gonna win the next one. I'm better than that guy. Like the TLO stuff, I remember it in Toronto, we were like, you know, Polt did lose to TLO, and he was like, yeah, but guys, that was round of 32.
This isn't even Polt's final form.
This is now, and wait till you see what happens. And then he did it. Like that's the cool thing about it. We'll call him out, but then he delivers. And Polt, a little bit of a legend in that way.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned that, though, especially, like, you know, the Captain America thing, because he took so many championships, especially in WCS when he played in WCS NA. But then you actually look at it and you ask American players about him, and it's like, he's actually like the scourge of America.
Yeah.
You try to play in these American tournaments, and he just shows up and wipes the floor with everybody.
He's not on the ladder. You're not facing him there.
You don't play him on ladder.
No.
You're not going to run into him in a, you know, in like a Zo tag or anything like that. You know, or go for SE2. You're just going to show up. You're going to be like, this tournament matters to me, and then Polt will be there. He'll be like, hello, thank you for your money.
It also matters to me in so much that I want to add to my already very successful career.
Yeah,
that's super established.
He is one of those guys that's always worth mentioning, that he's one of the few StarCraft players that's actually won a title on every continent that we run big StarCraft tournaments.
And he did it in Wings of Liberty. And since then, he's only built on that. That's what's incredible. Like, there have been people where a patch comes out, and you know, we always
the
bring
career-ending patches.
Well, here's what I'm saying, though. It's like always a negative connotation. We're like, oh, you only did well because that's super beneficial patch. Polt, his play style, his success has been patchless. Like, across the spectrum, he's never really fallen off.
He's always been an outlier.
Yes.
Polt is the guy that other people bring up when balance is funky, because they'll be like, oh yeah, but Polt still won, and it's like, no, you can't mention him. It's like during that time period where like Petraeus had like a 70% win rate doing like blink builds on heavy rain. Like, no, Polt still wins games. I'm like, yes, it's one guy. There's like 7 billion people on Earth, a couple 100,000 people playing StarCraft. One guy is able to win this. You know, he's just always good.
He sat down with the game 5 years ago and was really excited about it, looked at it, said, I basically, if you hit T and you have Marauders, you're going to do pretty okay across the board. And he's been doing it. I'm just kidding. But he's a fantastic player. Let's get into this, though. Petraeus, you called it out, Nathanius, and I like the call. It's pretty dead on. He is a straight-up guy. And honestly, if you look at that last game, he was doing pretty darn okay in a straight-up game. Like, I don't think he needs to come away from that game and go, gosh, I was planning on just out-macroing and outplaying him and hopefully winning, or at least giving some good games, and now I need to do a one-base Baneling all-in. It was really where he fell apart, was kind of in the mechanics side, rebuilding that creep. And then once, you know, a couple bad engagements with the Mutalisk and a couple bad Widowmine hits, all of a sudden, that was all Polt needed to kind of step forward. If he can avoid those little altercations, he should be all right.
And Polt's opened up very greedy this game, very differently to the last map on Coda. He went for a super fast third command center, which this Overlord is aware of, so he knows that Polt is playing a greedy style. He knows he won't have to worry about super fast Banshees or even a fast Viking. It's going to be a relatively straight-up start from the CM Storm Terran player. And honestly, I really like to talk about Polt's weakness in this matchup. Has this entire year, the series that he's lost, I think about the games he's lost, to Kane, TLO, and almost losing one map to Jon Snow and Challenger, is all this Zerg style that kind of plays against his late upgrades. Like, the Zerg just doesn't get upgrades. They do that really big Ling, Speed Bane Ling, Mutalisk push with no upgrades, and they just like churn out so many units that they stop Polt's early aggression without the upgrades. And then they just counterattack and win, because usually the Terran falls back on those upgrades finishing and like, yes, my Marines are ridiculously cost-effective now. But that doesn't really happen for Polt. Polt just wants to out-control you and put those investments into having more units at the start. But you can't outproduce a Zerg that does it well.
He does a thing he's just a bit of a thing of beauty when you watch him play. Like, his TVP in particular has been very formulaic, like 2 or 3 builds tops for years. But in TvZ, a little bit more of the same with a little bit of variation, but it's always kind of control-based. It's always like, you know, Feeler Hellions. We saw a Banshee opening last time as well, but that was after a Reaper did more than its weight worth in gold in terms of finding out what it's dealing with. He knew Mutas were on the way from a 2-base build and still got the cancels, still got a couple of drone kills, and was harrying the Zerg at a high level inside the base, killing a lot of the Lings. We talked about that and how they would snowball with the larva. So it's really nice watching Polt because he's never like a, well, gosh, this game I'm doing a timing attack, and boy, howdy, it better work, otherwise I'm dead. It's always like a, I'm going into it, I'm going to massage your strategy with my stuff, see what you're doing, and then
he put his
formulate from there.
He put his feelers out, trying to get an idea of what was going on. This build, Polt, not only has Polt been greedy, but he's also sold that he's being greedy very nicely, because I don't think Petraeus was expecting Polt to throw an armory down. Like, Polt did this the exact way that you would do a 3 command center double eBay build, except he just squeezed that armory in a little bit earlier. And it doesn't honestly make much sense if the Zerg scouts it, but he sold it so well that Petraeus is like, I actually don't have that many Lings to even make into Banelings. I wasn't expecting 10 Hellbats to just walk in my front door.
The Queens will stand their ground for a little bit, but they have no backup. There's no Roaches, no Banelings, as you said. There's a couple more pinging on that ramp. They'll come down here, but just a couple. And that's if they connect. The Queens are melting. That, okay, Baneling did do some nice thinning out there. But the age-old question,
there's no more
at what cost?
There's no more Banelings. Polt, this is like a bop strategy. You're basically, you know, Polt comes into this, he's like, I have a 3 command center double eBay build. If this doesn't win me the game, it's not the end of the world.
I'm like,
a counterattack. I mean, a counterattack could be doable if this didn't do any damage, and I'd still argue that maybe a counterattack could have been a decent option because Polt doesn't have anything back home. But Petraeus is back into drone production. He's trying to replace his Queens.
Let's step it back a minute. Let's dial it back and let's look at this for what it was. A hell of a defense. We were on the Polt train. I think if Petraeus would have really freaked out there, he could. I mean, he lost a few Queens.
The worker count is still
drones.
fine. Yeah.
0 drones. He only had 1 Baneling. He had a couple canceled, and he lost a few Lings. But he actually did a pretty damn good job defending that.
Yeah, he could have died. The Polt using the Queens to dance around to wait for the Banelings, I think, was really important.
I'm not a proud man, Nathanius. I can admit that you were completely wrong, and this is totally fine. You know what I mean?
I still think it did a lot of damage. What are you talking about?
I'm kidding. It's just too good of a line not to say. But 4th base being set up here for Petraeus. One of the kind of subtle things that did occur is a lot of those Queens were made for creep spread, and on this map in particular, it's very important.
Yeah.
It takes like 3 or 4 tumors to get to that 4th base, but even more importantly than that, you need to push beyond this bridge, otherwise all of a sudden you're sieging the 3rd base from right outside of it. It's not a bad idea to push creep out from the natural up on top of the map as well, because that is also a siege point. So this is part of the reason why on this map we don't see this pick very often is all of a sudden we're like, hey, Petraeus, you did a great job. Yeah, you took some damage. Nathanius is going to hold on to that like a dog with bone. I understand. You got to fight for what you can. But if he loses out in the creep game again, this could be a very short game. It could be over in like 1 push.
Yeah, I will say, big difference is because Polt went for that armory, Petraeus now finds himself with the upgrade advantage. And Polt only just now finished his 1-1, but Petraeus will at least not be in that weird spot where he was like slightly behind. That's really what I'm going at. It's even, but last game it wasn't quite.
But yeah, I agree with you.
It's something.
Being behind is bad. And then, of course, the 3-3 is the danger spot. Like, there's some Zergs that just never get up the hive.
The 3-3 for the Terran is when the bells begin to toll for most Zerg players.
They're like, oh god, I can feel it. They're invincible, aren't they? Just not dying.
They're coming for me. 3-3 Marines.
I like this. That wall is unexpected.
That is a very large wall. That's
it
great.
Really is. Mutalis coming out on the field here in a second. Back rocks being worked on. No depot there. This is the round of 32 Polt mistake that you're kind of looking for. Zergling's
like,
waiting.
Don't you realize there's a back door?
Yeah, bro. Oh, okay. Splitting up, going to go into the natural and the main.
Two
great
ways
choice.
in.
Oh, God, start attacking, though, for Pete's sake.
Fight, you fools. The Zerglings get on top of the SCVs in the main base. Already 10 workers.
Damage.
And all these Marines have to run back. And there's nothing ready to counterattack the other side.
Splits up the fight. They get cleaned up for free. The medevacs are just chilling here. Petraeus, you cheeky borky, man. He's doing it. He kills a bunch of SCVs. 16 SCVs down. The natural's still in disarray. Make it 17. Make it 18, maybe.
Rack him up in control. Yeah. He's doing it. That big army's getting outside the 3rd base. Now the Widow Mines are still here, so not quite the dive in and completely suicide scenario that Petraeus would want to be in. But this is also a good place to attack. There's 2 points where he can push in and be very aggressive. And I said that +2 upgrade didn't really matter, but because he's attacking as it finishes, Polt still doesn't have his 2-2. It's close, but it's not there.
This is not looking good for Polt. The single missile turret doing what it can. A little bit of engagement here. Actually, Petraeus has to be kind of careful. Okay, there's some decent connections. And he's pushing him back. Reinforcements coming in. Look at the mini-map. It's a swarm of Petraeus going in. And he doesn't even want the natural. He's going for the gold. He smells blood in the water. Bailey's going up into the middle line. There's SCVs and Marines there. Why not double up on that? Good fun.
Really
God, the
fantastic.
corner. Oh, there
You're
goes
boxed
all the
in.
SCVs.
Nowhere to go. Petraeus, after a phenomenal hold
Holy
earlier on,
cow.
really just swung things back. Having
Absolutely.
those, you know, of all the things in that hold, by the way, denied the +2 attack upgrade and will now
Well, I mean, it's over.
deny the
to
+2 armor.
Nathanius.
He's going to kill him.
Denying him a lot more than that. He's denying him a clean 2-0. And, but, you know, Polt's going to hold on, but the natural has been overran. Both the engineering base destroyed, drops the mules in probably the scariest spot possible, but I believe Polt knows what's...
Petraeus is like, you think this defense is over? You fool. He's just going to clean him up.
Die. And even the Thor comes in.
Don't know
and it's a
if that's-
beast, but there's just not enough.
Don't know if that's quite the New Zealand line, but
Oh, it totally is.
He's in dominant position. He's
I
in
am from New
dominant
Zealand.
form.
You know that?
I was not aware of that in control.
It's not well known, but it's true. Going after this orbital, and that's like shark-infested waters. Polt's just got to sit by on the inside of his main base and watches it's burnt to the ground. Petraeus played this really well. Okay, never mind. Polt's going to run out here.
Yeah, well, he tried, but he was like the other ship that watched the Titanic split. And I was like, well, we can't really do too much about
We're
that.
going to ram the iceberg as well, gentlemen. We're going to try to get revenge.
Polt, I mean, he's trying, but Petraeus will knock him back and tie the series up 1-1. I mean, really, that's Bridgehead in a nutshell. You're so used to in StarCraft 2, you get set up on 3 bases. If your opponent wants to attack you, it's usually suicide to push into you before you take your 4th, because you need to have that 3rd and 4th be vulnerable so that you can pull their army around.
Yep.
Bridgehead says, no, there's 2 ways you can attack once I'm on 3 bases, and this basically makes you like, if you're the Turtle Terran, you're like, well, I have to split my army up. It's not quite as fun because those Mutalisks are so fast.
It's pretty funny, too. It relatively speaking, it's a minor mistake. Like, everyone puts something by those rocks. Zerg, if you're
Just
an
a depot.
overlord, a pylon, a depot, something, because of exactly what we saw. Like, the Lings ran in. They absolutely. It was like 18 SCV kills from the get-go, and then that is enough for Polt to be. Now he's stimming to run into his main to defend. Now he's stimming to go down into a single missile turret defended natural. And all the while, Petraeus is on 4 bases. His creep is pushing out, and it's just Ling bailing Muta, which is great engagements for him. Very easy to do over here.
Yeah, and the way this map is laid out, too, everything kind of gets choked up naturally. It's such a narrow base. So
Look at this, right there.
all those SCVs.
27. Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Doesn't it make you happy to see that happen, Nathanius? Doesn't your heart just swell with pride?
I'm loving it. Control. It's amazing.
Similarly for me, when like that one Widow mine, you know, the Protoss like grabs all the probes and throws them to one mineral.
You like realize like half a
and the
second
Widow
too
mine's
late.
like, oh hi.
So you just try to grab all those probes.
Yeah.
That's rough. I mean, that's really nice. Terraform is going to be the next map. This map is pretty sick for some of those mech strategies that people have been upset about, but Polt doesn't really do
No,
those.
he won't.
So
Coda is the one, and he didn't do it at all.
yeah. Well, interesting shakeup to this series as we see once again Polt's vulnerability in the round of 32 to Zerg players as well. So very
Should we ramp
interesting.
this up? Is this the end of Polt, you think? Is this it?
I mean,
Does he just quit
the
right now?
weirdest thing about all of it is that he could actually, like, if there was one player that I would have picked to beat Polt in this group, it would have been Major.
Yes.
And if he were to actually lose this game,
I know.
then we're really set up for, like,
I know.
you know,
That is actually scary.
just get your posts ready so that you can post it the instant that you see that victory screen, just in case. Get your karma. We are loaded into game number 3. We're on Terraform in the northwest position. Tying things up 1-1. This student from My Insanity, he's Petraeus. I love his new shades, by the way.
Yeah.
He didn't wear those last season.
Took
I
a
don't think
page
he
from
played
Pig.
with glasses.
Pig's
very-
a handsome bloke, man.
Yeah, looking very fresh today is Petraeus. His opponent in the bottom right from CM Storm, of course, is Polt.
Got to do it. Tripping up here is not the end of the road for Polt. It is a 2 elimination series. He would have to face Major. But in that scenario, as we talked about, Major is a guy who has defeated Polt. And we're not like, it was the summer of 2011. It was actually fairly pretty recent.
Most of those series were within the last year.
There we go.
So
Right on.
that is what you were looking for.
Now this is different, Nathanius.
Tell me why.
We have an error in the matrix that, well, I mean, it's been hatch first each time, but Petraeus facing the beast that is Polt, and a lot of these guys have gotten to where they are because they're willing to gamble with everything on the line. This would be the ultimate time for a proxy 2-rack strategy from Polt. But as we can see, he's not opting for it. Now, what I like about this for Petraeus is we've seen this quite a bit from a lot of the Korean Zergs in particular. You don't really lose that much. Obviously, if you pulled a Zerg aside, they'd be like, oh yeah, I'd love to go 3-hatch before pool and make my first queen at minute 25. But like in this scenario, he gets an earlier queen, so he's injecting a little bit earlier. He's safer against any kind of proxy Reaper, proxy Marine, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he's not giving up that much.
Yeah, he's only actually building just the 2 lings, so he's only spending 1 larva to produce a couple of units that'll be able to check. It's interesting that you bring that up, though. We talk about Polt and his career. Unlike many other Terran players, especially those who were successful early on in StarCraft, like Wings of Liberty, a lot of them did it off the back of super cheesy, aggressive builds. And while Polt may have started the era of like the 1-1-1 when that was a thing, it still wasn't like the proxy type play. Polt's never been too much of a 2-raxer, so it's interesting to me that Petraeus would even, do a build that considers that, because to me, Polt is like almost like always your safe bet. It's not like the Muslim where you should just defensively 6-pull in preparation for the 2-racks.
There's so many jokes to be made there, but I won't. I love your relationship with the Muslims. That's actually what the joke I was going to make. The one time you gave him a shout out on Twitter to try to throw a little dig at him.
I could say the defensive 6 evolution chamber as well, but.
Getting deep in here. I gotta be careful. Oh, I'm always. Maybe I'm the only guy that does this.
I always feel like I'm gonna get the drone.
Yes.
I always feel like I'm gonna get the drone, and then at the very last second, like as I click on it,
Reapers are the little brothers of StarCraft. They're so annoying. But no, what I mean is when they dive into the mineral line, you just grab the drones and surround.
It never works.
I know. When you miss, you feel like an idiot.
I don't know how many people know this, but in StarCraft II, in like the way that the engine actually works, units that are in motion, like if a unit isn't on hold position or stop, it actually, like, as they're moving, their unit size is actually smaller. So if the Reaper is moving and your drones are also moving, it's actually more easy for the Reaper to slip out than if you just like hold positioned your drones.
But then they're not shooting. So I mean, it's a back and forth.
It's weird.
Yeah. And then in Legacy of the Void, which is gonna be really fun, what they do is
they just throw the grenade.
Drop a grenade.
You
just
see
and not like sayonara.
Exactly. You just rocket jump out of there, man. Easy.
Oh, not paying attention. Maybe I'll lose this Reaper.
Oh,
he does. Nice little pickup.
That's like an uncharacteristic Polt mistake right there.
I know.
I mean, it's just a Reaper, but like, you watch this game, I'm like, Polt wouldn't just lose his Reaper against Petraeus.
A little bit of your fandom is dying right now. The poster you had him sign when you were 9 years old.
I'm a pretty big Petraeus fan. I don't know.
Really?
Now I want to buy some smart shades if he wins. Imagine if he gets out of sweep. I want to buy some smart shades. I already know I need glasses, and I want to have Petraeus sign them. Nice.
Would you go that route though? You're gonna go the Australian pig Petraeus route, where the
maybe
dark framed black glasses.
Yeah.
That trend only just now got to Australia, so that's part of the reason why you're seeing it so much from them. It takes a long time to ship over there. That was hipster stuff. Like, I'm from Seattle. I mean, people were wearing those kind of glasses like 8 years ago,
the costs of getting it there are quite exorbitant, to say the least. He's going for Hellion Banshee again. And I do believe he's getting another tech lab on his barracks, so we're not about to see the world get flipped upside down. Polt isn't going to play mech.
No, it's just summer opening, and it was the one that he did when he crushed Petraeus. Petraeus in much better shape here, though. No harass really. His creep has been. Well, I'm not going to go too hard on this, but he actually already has a spore caller out there too to help with his.
It's funny because
between the bases.
I think he forgot to cancel it, but it actually still ends up being useful anyway.
Meant for that.
It's like, yes, it was a calculated, accidental non-cancel. He's like, I know you're going to go Banshee.
And it is with Cloak, by the way, which the last time I think it was starting to be Cloak, but he canceled it.
Yeah, that is actually a good point too.
Are these? Is there an armory?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Right.
No armory.
No armory.
We're good. He did cancel. Oh no, okay, just finished. All right. The animation on that tech lab is really weird when you lift off.
Cloak is finished, as Flo is showing us here, by the way. Awesome to have Flo here. Easily top 5 observer in all of the land.
But with this spine up front and the queens with the overseer, I don't really feel like there's much Polt could do. Like those Banshees splitting up, I feel like if they were with the Hellions, they'd have a much greater chance of like trying to cancel or do something about this third. But all these queens have so much energy.
Yeah. This is annoying, though. One drone died there. I mean, no saturation just yet. If Polt goes in on this, we'll have to see. Those queens do have a lot of energy, but there's an inject, a tumor.
These Hellions are really trying to distract him. At the same time, third base gets creeped up, and the Banshees go into the main base, but they might get this queen. That would be about it. Barely alive. Just, I think that's like 1 hit point on that.
Things
Queen
are going
main.
Petraeus' way kind of right now.
Yeah, so he's
And
trying to pull them apart, but these Banshees, all the mutas are out too, so needs to carefully split everything up. Not losing the third is really all that matters, because you can always just stock up those drones at home. Counterattack.
Petraeus.
There's nothing here.
The Hellions are getting back. They're being chased back, actually, kind of ironically. It's like, there's nothing here, but all of a sudden, if the Hellions are here, there is something
Yeah,
here.
but, I mean, at this point, busting the depots with how far supply block Polt already is, this would actually be really, really bad to get through here. The mutas are coming up. If only he'd gotten more in that first wave, this really could have been devastating.
This is not bad at all.
Killing the Hellions. If the Hellions had been picked off by the first wave of mutas, they kind of came out spread out, right, because of how the larva injects work, right?
Yeah.
They can't all spawn at one area, but...
Still not bad for Petraeus, though. I mean, look at this. He's
I like
actually
it a lot.
quite a bit up in supply.
I still like this setup for him a lot because Polt is actually, has
Sure.
actually been stuck at like below 78 for quite a while.
Banshees did 0 damage. The Hellions tickled and jerked around that hatchery, but nothing really of it.
Yeah. And he hasn't landed that third command center. We're past 11 minutes. He didn't do damage. Normally, with a regular 3 command center build, you want to be planted at 10:30 latest. Is 49 SCVs to 72 drones. So those mules, the third orbital hasn't even finished yet, so the mule advantage isn't there either. Petraeus is in a really good spot. Upgrade-wise, slightly favoring Polt. Have his 1-1 done first, and now these Banshees are going to try to even things up with these Hellions.
Going on the drones here. Ling's going to try to intercept. The Hellions were a little bit weaker, but they're getting pretty good drone shots, and actually the Banshees really, 12 drones down.
Really did a lot of work on that drone count, actually. That's quite big for Polt. He actually really needed that in this game.
Okay, good. There was a spy that made it in there for 1 second. And now it looks like Polt's going to look to secure a third. Going for the kind of irregular... Well, you tell me, actually. In TvZ, is this the normal third to take?
I think against Zerg, it's not as big of a deal because the mutas are going to hit your mineral line from the backside either way. Like they'll either bounce between your natural and your third or your main and your third.
Okay.
You don't, unless if you're up against roaches, I guess it's a bigger deal because running your bio around those minerals is annoying. But I don't think in TvZ it's that big of a deal.
I like that he, by the way, doesn't skimp and goes for the bunker each time. There's some Terrans that really never set up their third and are just panicky about getting out on the map and harassing because they know that's a big part of the game, but in doing so, they trade out the stability of their third forever, and I feel like that oh god!
That's actually a good reaction. I was getting ready to.
Petraeus, man, he's pretty chill. He just
I was firing up my vocal cords for a scream
Ah!
of terror.
but it never came.
Oh
to
my
play.
goodness! In control.
Prepare your eyes. But now Polt up at 3 bases.
2-2 on the way.
Oh, dicey.
No. The thing is, whenever you're doing something like this, just always send one forward.
Oh, here comes Petraeus, by the way.
I'm
He's
really
going.
scared.
Oh, God.
Okay, Widowmine
Lings
gets
first.
the Lings. Okay, now the Banelings can go in. That was really smart of him to use those
Or
Lings.
the Banelings can sit there forever.
Yeah. The rocks are broken down, so making it more difficult to counter.
No. Okay, 4th base is being set up.
I want these Banelings hit that third so badly. Okay, he's going to use the Overseers to take out the Widow Mines, or at least tank the shots from them.
Polt's army is still not very large. Oh, and he finds...
these Banelings.
It's a big deal that he finds
This
Banelings.
this could actually still be
so
okay
bad.
if he was able to get something into the natural. Like, he could blow them up from the other side of the mineral line and still hit those workers, too, which is, like, the weird thing. It's actually not a bad spot. But you have
Picks
to
off the Widow
manually detonate the Banelings.
Okay. Very tense. Both these players at 1-1 here in this critical best of 3, deciding who will face Hearthstone or Major respectively. And Polt looking a little bit more vulnerable than we're used to seeing. Widowmine's going to drop down there. Oh, a lot of
There's
Banelings
no
could die. He's going to
creep
turn around,
here.
but he's off creep and they get picked off.
Less
Great
than
micro from
ideal.
Polt.
Yeah, less than ideal trade for Petraeus. Polt manages to take a little bit of momentum now. That creep spread in a pretty
Less than
pretty
ideal.
tough spot.
Bro,
Yeah.
you gotta. We're going ham here, man. That was cataclysmic. You got to use words that usually describe biblical endings of life.
Absolutely flabbergasting engagement as he pushes in, snaps up the medevac. In control. He killed 3 Marines for 3 Banelings. I'm astounded.
There you go. See, Nathanius, you're gonna come away from this as hyperbolic as I hope and dream. When I first saw young Nathanius start casting with the bandana around your head, I was like, this man can go ham. We're gonna get you there. No 4th base yet for Polt. That's kind of typical Polt.
Petraeus lost a lot of Overlords too, by the way. He just dumped like 500 minerals in unsupply blocking himself.
It's down in supply, but that's not that untypical. Look again, this Widowmine
Yeah, the
play.
random mines. Oh
It's
no!
so annoying. He saw it. Okay.
I was
And see, this is why you don't typically see it, because once you start to kind of look at this, those 2 Widowmines could foreseeably kill 2 Lings and then die for free.
see, this is why the mineral line is bad against Terran,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Marines, they shoot things from a distance.
They got range. Do you know what a Space Marine's rifle shoots?
It's a Gauss rifle. It's really high speed, just pieces of
Spikes, basically.
Spikes, yeah, it's like steel.
I'm glad you know that. There's so many people that don't know the
They're not actually bullets. No,
No, they're not bullets.
It's like having like a stake of steel.
Yeah,
Steel
shot at hypersonic speeds. It's really cool. We're gonna have just at the edge of creep here, but again, Polt holds, and just a couple of Widow Mines getting done what other people could only dream. Petraeus getting oh my goodness. And he's going to go for a little bit of a counterattack.
Oh, these mines.
Oh, well,
okay, that one
creative.
actually got good hits on those Marines, so clean some of them up.
That was a Zerg Widow Mine, that one.
And that Thor coming in.
Not mining for the 4th, for the most part, is not the end of the world. Like, he's still mining the gas, which is the critical part of this 4th base, and he's setting up the lower left-hand side. So Petraeus, he's down in supply. These fights aren't going good. Like, I'm trying to build up a story here, but he keeps throwing away Banelings. Like, he can't lose Banelings like that. That's where he starts to lose this game.
I mean,
because now look what Polt does.
It's just weird because he has actually the gas to make a lot of Banelings, but he doesn't have the minerals anymore.
Yeah.
It's like as nice as it is to have gas for Zerg, you still need that 4th base mineral
Well,
income, and Polt's basically saying no.
And here we go. Petraeus has been bullied off that 4th base, and he's going to go for the 3rd. This is a big score here. The 4th base does look to die.
And he wants to counter, but this army's here. The Widow Mine sees it. And look, all this bio. There's
Now
really not that many Banelings. And
He's
yeah,
pushed
exactly.
away.
2 Thors to anchor. You just pull the Marines behind them, and you're like, yes, dive into this. Please, have fun.
Well, we'll see if Petraeus can drag this back, but I'll tell you what, he started off, and I was actually nervous for Polt fans, man. It looked like he was about to die.
Polt turned it up a little bit.
Well, we know for what now.
Yeah, for
He
sure.
turned up for this. This is
Petraeus-
WCS.
Petraeus managed to get to Hive, but this is still a really difficult spot to be in because this is where, like we saw in Coda, Polt's basically just going to start building a bank. And then Petraeus can throw. Petraeus will be like, I can barely afford Ultras. And then Polt's like, I can afford 30 Marauders right now.
Ultralists need the synergy of the rest of the army. Sometimes it's Infestors, it's a little bit harder to rely on. We saw Broodlords, but we never really saw the full potential. If it's like 9 Broodlords and then a ground army still supported by at least some Mutalisks or Corruptors for anti-air, that army is like, Terran has such a tough time with it. But if you never get up to that full cohesion of units.
This is a really nice mute account, I have to say, though. Polt's trying to move some Thors around in the Medivacs, so trying to get a little bit more mobility on that large anti-air force.
He wants to kill it. This is where his attention is, though, and Petraeus...
As good as the mutas are, he doesn't actually have the force that he needs to defend back home. Like, there's so many missile turrets here, and as nice as the mutas are doing, like, he's slowly bleeding them out. He's dropped about 4 since he started this poke. Another one's going to drop, and he's not going to end the game with this many Marines and this Thor hanging back.
Oh, we have a big engagement actually over at the 3rd. Petraeus is holding off what he can, but there's actually 4 Thors
There's so many Thors.
This army's become a little bit more mechanized.
Yeah, against
and now
this,
these Banelings and Lings, they just don't do much there.
Yeah, he has +2 armor on those Thors, so the Zerglings are actually doing like 2 damage a hit to the Thors because they don't have the +3.
Why does he have mech armor?
Because it also helps the Medivacs. Everything is
right.
stronger, and the Thors already have base armor, so this is very difficult for the Zerglings to clean up.
Well, the Thors are like, what about us? Pick me up!
I don't quite fit in there if there's one man with me.
We're not that good. And the Mutalisks doing a lot of damage behind that. I mean, look, 30 SCVs down, a lot of things are set on fire. Unfortunately for Petraeus, and well, fairly close to supply. It's just he's at 3 bases. Like, we have to see 2 hatcheries being made right now, but he doesn't have the minerals for it. So he's constantly like, okay, I've done harass, I've won a couple of little fights, it's time to push out, but the Terran is just so good at recycling out units and trading out. We see these little annoying Widow Mine shots. He actually has, what is that, like 6 or 7 Thors? Like, that's actually a beefy Terran army at this point.
The thing is, you just take those Thors and you just right-click them onto the Ultralisks, and they're going to kill them in like 2 or 3 volleys, and suddenly you can just pull your Marines back, let them stutter step against the Mutalisks, and you've got a great force right there. And the Mutalisks aren't even, they don't even matter anymore. They'll all die.
Don't.
As soon as they start a fight, as soon as the fight starts, all those Thors shoot at once. Every Mutalisk dies. Then the Thors just kill the Ultralisks.
Yeah. The straight-up fight is not going to work for Petraeus, and he needs to actually be able to win a straight-up fight to take a 4th base at this point in time.
I mean, he's put up a great...
Because Polt will make that the contention point each time. He's like, all right, you took a 4th, here's my army.
He's put up a great fight against someone, who's won so many titles, considering that Petraeus has never been able to pick up those big ones himself. But this game is just really, really in a tough spot because Polt has that 4th and Petraeus still does not. Petraeus hasn't actually been able to mine off of a 4th, really, at all in this game. And that is like getting that fourth is where you feel comfortable as a Zerg. That's when you're like, okay, now I can start to do something about winning, think about winning this game. But
There we go. We're building up to that final altercation. A lot of creep dying here. Petraeus cleaned up the drops quite nicely in the main, but it lost him positioning, and actually Polt's going to play it safe. Backs off, happy with the kill there. A Ling counterattack, again occupying the attention of Polt a little bit. It's just too little, too late. Because unless Petraeus can add something to the mix to win a straight-up fight against an army that's anchored by so many Thors.
yeah, a fully upgraded army.
It's a lot of Ultralisk. If he can get the Baneling connections. The Widowmine count has shrunk a little bit, right? Like, and Polt's never been really carrying them in the army. It's more just they're sprinkled around the map to be, oh, those Thors.
I think the other thing to consider is that this
This is terrible.
This map just has so many chokes too. Like trying to funnel all these big burly Ultralisks through choke points. Polt's army is like, I'll gladly just sit here and kill everything as it comes through. Yeah. There's no big open area. Yeah, this is Coda. You know, there's no center of the map where you can just swarm me, or even on Bridgehead. Like, I guess in that case it was more of having multiple areas to attack. But really, there's only one point.
We're gonna have it.
He's
This is
ready.
the spot. There is no creep here. Single Widowmine. Like, oh, dude. I'll kill all the Banelings.
I'll take them all. I mean, the Mutas are going to grab this medevac. That's nice, but you're going to need everything to defend this.
We got to watch
position.
this. Here we go. It
It's
has
all
to be
or
here.
nothing. He has to win the game right now because if his army dies, Polt will just kill him.
Or if he's not mining a fourth,
He's
he'll
no
die
bank.
equally there as well.
Yeah,
A single Infester. Okay, I mean,
He has no bank.
and we're going to
And
push forward.
Infestor
Baneling's trying to go
doesn't
for the
have energy.
connections. There's not a lot of Marines, but they're getting good hits here. Mutals are here as well, but as we said, they just kind of melt fairly quickly. Ultras do win the day, though. They push forward.
Actually cleans up a lot of the ground army without the Widowmine support. Those Ultras, Polt actually fought the Ultras, which with
gonna trade out
Marines.
the fourth.
But then this happens, right?
And now look at Petraeus. He's waffling in the middle of the map. Because pushing with that army is so scary, it has no lockdown, to use the term that I probably shouldn't. But without Fungal or Mutalisk or something to chase a kiting army back, any number of Marauders comically kill almost all those Ultralisks.
Yep.
Especially off creep. Especially off creep.
The Thor also doing its best to try to kill these Mutalisks because we saw this happen on Coda. You know, you clean up most of the army, but that little bit gets picked up, runs in, kills all of your important tech, and then the Terran player is like, okay, well, time for you to tap out.
And all the while behind this, Polt is up to 5 bases. He doesn't even care. He could lose all these medevacs, lose all the contents of said
Petraeus
medevacs.
secured the gold base. It's done. And now
By
Polt has another
secured
army ready to go kill it.
Yes, exactly.
By secured, I mean he presented
It
an
has
offering to the Terran gods of Polt.
Yeah.
So he's like, I will gladly accept this this donation. Thank you.
Basically. And Polt's got to, he's going to push forward here. There's that one Widowmine anchor again.
The thing is, Polt just has too much income. Polt can continue to. Polt can do this all day long because he has that.
And now he's
base.
killing Ultras, even on creep here.
Yeah.
They have nothing to support them. There's a drop inside the main. More will be lost there. And Petraeus might be at that just shove moment, but look at this. He's barely getting connections. They just
He's like, if only my Ultras could get 2 swipes on this army, I could win. But, Polt is going to kite. And yeah, a lot of this is going to die, but then you see the next giant army because Polt
and now
has
it's enough
base.
to chase, and then they run. This is the Han Solo Stormtrooper scene from the first movie.
GG, Polt will advance forward to play against Hearthstone.
A New Hope. I blanked on that. Sorry.
Okay.
I cannot do a broadcast of a nerdy game like this and not remember the name of New Hope. Polt taking care of business. It got close. Petraeus dices him up in game 2. That was really nice to see. And in game 3, I'll tell you what, Nathanius. I mean, that moment in time where the Banelings were kind of looking to crack in, there was like 4 Marines on the other side of that depot wall. If the Hellions don't get back exactly when they do, like if Polt would have been like, no, I'm going to go back to the third and harass, he might just lose the game right there.
Yeah, and there's so many other ways that Polt can do it as well, where it gives Petraeus an opportunity. Like when they take that big fight, Petraeus has that little bit of a supply lead, and all Polt does, and it seems so subtle, he makes that pickup go straight over to that 4th base, just right across the mineral patch, and he's like, yeah, okay, you won that fight. Your Ultralisks actually have to go very far around to get back to this 4th base to defend it. So Petraeus still loses that base. Then the medevacs draw him back into his main base, and at that point, you're being stretched too thin. Like Petraeus would have loved to just counterattack with all those Ultras, with those Lings, with the Mutas, the few Mutas that he had, and he might have been able to knock down the 4th, and then we have a game again. But Polt, that's why he comes into this group as the favorite.
Absolutely.
And that's
the tournament, really.
Yeah.
Well, Nathanius, I'm excited. We've got top-tier analysts like Huck, and then also Rotterdam is there as well. So I'm really excited to throw it over to them.
Yeah, let's hear it from
I want
them.
to see them. I want to see them with my eyes.
Thank you very much, guys. Very excited to listen to these guys, too. Listening to them the whole match here on my own was just a shame. Got to share all of their brilliant thoughts with our audience. But let's talk about, obviously, the big thing here is Petraeus still taking that game, too, against Polt. And it looks like for a moment Petraeus really could pull through and just knock this whole group into chaos, Chris.
Yeah, and this speaks to the point, I think, that Polt's not really adapting. I feel like this push was really strong and something that's not really tailored to what Polt usually does. He's a player that always goes bio, which was nice and interesting, but at the same time, Petraeus did play well, and Polt isn't really adapting to the current meta. I feel like mech, TvZ right now is the story to be told, especially with the new maps, and Polt hasn't shown that at all. He has not shown that he's ready to adapt and go that mech style, and you know, this is the Polt that, in my opinion, we saw lost to TLO in the group stages last season. He's not unbeatable. He's making small mistakes, as we saw on this map with the rocks being in the back. There's no supply depot. Just small, cluttery mistakes that, you know, should be something so simple and so easy for a player like Polt that's a veteran.
Yeah, of course, in the first clip we saw there, I mean, we saw all the Hellbats. It looked like it was going to be a huge army of Hellbats, and then only 2 drones end up dying throughout the whole thing. Roddy, going forward, though, in Game 3, obviously, Polt pulls back. And we talked about this. We talk about this every time Polt shows up, right? He's like, oh, well, a bit of a slow starter in any tournament. Is there anything that Polt himself or his fans need to be worried about right now, given his performance against Petraeus?
I mean, you never have to be worried if you win. And Polt often says that in one of his interviews. He's like, well, you know, it wasn't perfect, but I won. You know, he's done so many of those interviews. So I wouldn't be too worried if I'm a big Polt fan. But I do agree with Chris, a couple of uncharacteristic mistakes. And I wouldn't even go as far to say, call it a small mistake. Like, it's bridgehead. There are 2 destructible rocks in your natural. Like, every player needs to have vision of that all the time. Not having that costed him the game, because up to that point, it was relatively even though I do want to give credit where credit is due. And I think Petraeus played one hell of a series, man. He really made it quite hard for Polt. And even in both the games that he lost, Game 1 and Coda, there were opportunities. There was a certain moment where I was like, is he going to do this? And then, okay, Polt got too rich. But especially on bridgehead, even when I thought he was super dead, suddenly he had that massive fight. You know, this Mutalisk Harass, it works 2 ways, right? On one hand, it's like, man, he's doing a lot of economic damage. And then you see that small little tab at the bottom of your screen, army, it goes up to 165 soon. So it's like, well, you know, it's great that these Mutalisks killed a lot of SCVs, but now you're setting yourself up for an absolutely almost indestructible Terran army. And then suddenly, he somehow kind of made it work. And then it's just on that moment, Polt steps it up again. You know, he turns up another gear. He's like, this fight, like, I was so surprised how well Petraeus did over here. He absolutely crushed this army of Polt. But then he made the crucial mistake of not following the medevacs. You know, both Chris and me were sitting here, we're like, the medevacs, he's gonna pick up, and then he just runs across the map. And those medevacs, they just killed the economy of Petraeus, and they killed the hopes of winning this game. Because look at the supply right now. It's dead even, and you know, mineral-wise, Polt doesn't even have any money. So if he keeps that base alive, we're looking at a completely different game.
Yeah, now I want to bring that point a little bit back to what Chris mentioned earlier about the meta, right? Everyone's been talking about mech, how good it is. I mean, we're seeing that recently. What are your thoughts, Roddy, on Polt? Not really so far from what we've seen, transitioning over to that trend.
Well, you know, if I was like a diehard Polt fan that wants him to win every game, maybe I'd be disappointed. But I love Polt for the player who he is. And, you know, I'm more of a bio fan than I am of a mech fan. So I'm actually not too sad to see him stick to his roots. And I think, you know, it gives him character.
That's true. I mean, that's, you know, he sticks to what he knows, and that's how he's going to move on forward. So he will be facing Harsum next in this tournament. But first up, we need to decide who's going to have another shot. It's going to be Major versus Petraeus coming out after that break. You know, Chris, Petraeus definitely, I think, pleasantly surprised everyone who was watching that match. What's your take so far? I think Petraeus, I mean, does he have a shot here to maybe go for a second chance against either Harsum or Polt?
I was talking to Major in the back, and he said that he honestly didn't care who he played, Polt or Petraeus, which is surprising. You know, if that's me in that matchup, I'm thinking, please, Polt, like, pull together, make it out of this match, because I don't want to play that guy. But all in all, I think Major is fairly confident, or maybe it's indifference. Either way, we've seen it work in the past with pro players, and I think Major has a pretty good shot.
I think Major is very eager for this next series as well, because that first series of the day, even though he lost 0-2, it felt like both games he was never able to shine. He never made it into the mid phase of the game, being like, all right, we're on even terms right now, and you know, this is where either you or me is going to make the difference. No, it's build order, gets countered, tries to make, you know, some plays, didn't work, game over. So he's ready to get into 3-4 base scenario and show off what he's truly made of.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the matchup coming up next. It's going to be Major versus Petraeus to fight to see who gets to survive in the WCS Premier League right after this.